Senator Kelly, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Well, thank you for having me on, Kristen.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. I want to start by talking about the protests that we've witnessed on college campuses all across the United States. In some cases, the universities have called in the police for reinforcements, including here in Arizona. Do you think it is appropriate for universities to call in police to try to help quell the protests on college campuses?
Well, some of these protests have become very violent, and students, especially Jewish students, have the right to feel safe on a campus, and they've gotten out of control. Everybody has the right to protest peacefully, but when it turns into unlawful acts, we've seen this in a number of colleges and universities, including here in Arizona, it's appropriate for the police to step in.
What do you think about if these protests were to escalate? Would it be appropriate to call in the National Guard, as House Speaker Johnson has called for?
Well, it hasn't gotten to that point, and I hope it doesn't. My hope here is that in the coming days, there could be some, change. We'll have to see, but we continue to have these ongoing discussions with Hamas towards some kind of ceasefire. Hamas has traditionally rejected them. Since October 7th, this has been a horrible situation for Israelis, for innocent Palestinian people, and now for Jewish kids on campuses in the United States. And what I would like to see is that things, settle down, that they do not escalate. And eventually, if we get a ceasefire, in Gaza, and we could come to an agreement, eventually we could get peace in the Middle East. But, right now the biggest barrier to that is clearly Hamas.
And I do want to talk to you about the policy in the Middle East and what is happening right now there. But going back to this question, things haven't gotten to that point yet, as you're saying, but if these protests were to escalate, would you rule out supporting the National Guard being called in?
Well, Kristen, there's a lot of speculation there, that they're going to get worse. I don't think that's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't. I want kids on college campuses to be safe. I want Jewish students to be able to go to class, get their education. I don't want to see protesters destroying property on campuses or doing other unlawful things. So I think in most cases, the police have conducted themselves appropriately here, and my hope is that this settles down.
I want to get your reaction to how some Republicans are describing these protesters. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik said Columbia leadership, quote, has lost complete control of the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic mob. Senator Marco Rubio called the protesters anti-Semitic zombies. Senator Tom Cotton referred to the protesters as pro-Hamas sympathizers, fanatics, and freaks. What is your reaction to hearing those descriptions of the protesters?
Well, some of these protesters aren't even students, right? I mean, we know that they're showing up on campuses and they're becoming involved. And when they cross a line and when they commit crimes, they should be arrested. That's the appropriate thing to do. We saw that in Tucson, Arizona, at the University of Arizona, where Gabby and I live, just the other day. I don't think it's helpful for anybody, especially in a leadership position, to say things that are escalatory. I'm not suggesting that every one of those things were. In some cases, I think I agree with some of that sentiment.
What do you agree with?
Well, I mean, you have some individuals, a certain group of them, that show up to peacefully protest, and then you have others that want conflict. And in some cases have even assaulted police officers. And those individuals need to be dealt with appropriately. And students on campus should be able to go to classrooms, get their education, not be intimidated. And the rising anti-Semitism that we've seen is of great concern for me. And I think it should be for everybody in elected office. We talk about this a lot. I think we're going to see some more legislation on this. There's legislation that I've supported that's working its way through Congress that will hopefully deal with this rising anti-Semitism issue.
Do you think President Biden, who spoke out about the protests on college campuses this week. Do you think he has done enough to address the unrest that we've seen on college campuses?
We haven't had unrest like this on college campuses in decades. And, I think you got to go back to the Vietnam War to see this level. Decades ago, it was worse than it is today. The issues that colleges are dealing with right now, with a number of students, but also folks from the outside of these colleges and universities, it's troubling, and it has to be dealt with appropriately. I saw what the president said yesterday, and I think that was appropriate.
Do you think he needs to do more? Do you want to hear more from him? Do you think he needs to take any more actions?
Well, I mean, I imagine the White House is, looking at what else they can do. This is often an issue for mayors and governors, university presidents to deal with. I think some have done a good job dealing with it, others not so much.
I want to talk to you about the policy now. Last week, Congress, as you know, passed an aid package. It's going to send about $15 billion in military aid to Israel. You voted to support this. It does not come with conditions. My question, Senator, is how can Israel be held accountable if the United States doesn't use the leverage that it has in the form of giving aid with conditions attached?
Well, October 7th was unprecedented for the country of Israel. I mean, they have not been attacked like that from a terrorist group. I went there a week later. I've watched over an hour of video of what happened on that day. It was brutal. It was barbaric. And Israel has every right to respond in an appropriate way. And they've been trying to deal with this terrorist organization that literally is embedded in tunnels. It's a very complicated thing to deal with. I used to fly in my previous life off of an aircraft carrier, flying in combat over Iraq and Kuwait. What they're dealing with in this dense urban environment is challenging. To be able to go after a target when it's near civilians. And we never want to see innocent women, children, old people getting killed. That has happened at a pretty high rate here. I brought this up with Netanyahu a number of times, and with Yoav Gallant, the defense minister. They have to do a better job. Early on, they were using a lot of unguided munitions in buildings, sometimes, often where they know there are Hamas terrorists. But next door, if you miss, and it's rather sometimes difficult to hit the target when you're using an unguided munition. So we've had this challenge, and I've stressed to them that they've got to do better on this. And if they don't, I think it is appropriate. And I want to see some changes here. And I've talked to the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador, Michael Herzog, about this specifically, that if we don't see some changes, I think it is appropriate to put conditions on some of this aid.
So the red line for you is if the United States does not start to see Israel do a better job of protecting civilian lives. What's the time frame for
Well, I want to see them do more. They're getting more aid. Some of this aid is in the form of rounds for David Sling and Iron Dome, which are the surface-to-air missile systems that protect them, not only from rocket attacks in Gaza, but also from ballistic and cruise missiles that come from the Iranians. Very effective. They need to be resupplied with those munitions. At the same time, they also need what are called JDAM kits for Mark 80 series weapons, kind of weapon that I used to drop in combat over Iraq. They need more of that. If we see the same level of civilian casualties, that is a big concern of mine.
That's a red line for you.
Well, it's a big concern, and we're going to continue to address it and push the Israelis to do better. If they do better, this also allows the option of more food aid, getting in. We're here at the McCain Forum. Cindy McCain, formerly Ambassador McCain, now Director McCain of the World Food Program. I speak to her a lot about this. Get the Israelis on the right track and how they're conducting these operations against Hamas, which they have to do. Hamas, without question, is the biggest impediment to peace in the Middle East. If we're ever going to get a deal between, let's say, Saudi Arabia and Israel, a peace deal, the threat of Hamas has to be eliminated. But my conversations with Ambassador McCain, it's been a challenge for her to get all the food aid in there. So if the Israelis can do better on the battlefield, reduce the civilian casualties, make fewer mistakes, or the goal is no mistakes in how they're conducting this, it would help get the food aid to the innocent Palestinians.
Let me ask you, big picture, and given the fact that you have served in the military, President Biden has called Prime Minister Netanyahu's actions in Gaza a mistake. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I haven't seen that quote from the president. I feel Israel has a right to defend themselves from what happened on October 7th. I've never seen, video as horrific. I mean, them murdering children, literally children in their homes, multiple times, and then taking this number of hostages. What we need is to continue to have discussions so we can get to a point where the hostages can be released, we can get a peace agreement, or at least a ceasefire with Hamas, eliminate them as a threat, and then put together the coalition of groups that could start to rebuild Gaza.
Well, and just to be clear, though, given the death toll, given the growing humanitarian crisis, do you think, putting aside what President Biden has said, do you think that Prime Minister Netanyahu has made mistakes as he's conducted this war?
He's absolutely made mistakes, a lot of them. I've talked to him about some of those, specifically. These are hard problems. I mean, any kind of combat action, especially in an urban environment, is very challenging. If it was the U.S. military conducting this, I think you would see this would go much differently than it went. So, sure, he's made a lot of mistakes. And that's why I have expressed that to him. I've expressed it to the defense minister, to the ambassador, that they have to do better.
Let's talk about what is happening in your state. Arizona is now effectively ground zero for the national fight over abortion rights. Just this week, the state legislature voted to repeal Arizona's ban that went all the way back to 1864. Do you think the repeal minimizes the urgency that some voters will feel to get out and vote for Democrats?
I think women in Arizona have been through a really tough time. And it all goes back to Donald Trump's election and what he said he wants to do to Roe v. Wade. He recently said he broke it. This is all on him. That women in the state of Arizona don't have the rights that they previously had. I have a daughter that lives in Arizona, a granddaughter who have fewer rights than my mother or grandmother had. And that's because of one person. And I think women get that. They understand that. And they've been all over the place. We've got healthcare providers that are leaving the state. I've spoken to them. When the Dobbs decision by the Supreme Court and Roe being overturned, we had abortion providers that left. Women cannot get the healthcare they need in this state right now. We have an opportunity in November to sort of fix this at the state level with a ballot initiative. What we really need is national legislation to codify a women's rights to make these decisions. And that's only going to happen and get signed into law if Joe Biden is reelected president. We don't need more of Donald Trump. I mean, he already said he broke this. We know what he wants to do. He has said that he would sign a national abortion ban. He has said that women should be punished, that doctors should be punished. So sure, yeah, on this issue, Arizona's ground zero.
Well, you take me to my next question, which is that President Biden has said that if he's reelected, if Democrats control the Senate, that he will work to try to codify abortion rights. But as you know, that would take 60 votes, something that is not possible at this point in time. Would you support getting rid of the filibuster in order to support abortion rights, to codify Roe v. Wade into law?
Yes.
You would?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, and when we were looking at voting rights legislation, I voted for that as well. I think there are certain things that rise to the level that you need to change the rules of the United States Senate. The Senate has some challenging rules. I spent 15 years at NASA flying the space shuttle. If NASA had the rules of the United States Senate, the rocket ship would never leave the launch pad. So at times, at the appropriate time, I think this is one of them, I would consider, changing those rules to make sure that women can get the health care they need.
And of course, we'll have to wait until November to see who has control of the House and who has control of the Senate. But do you think that given that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are leaving the Senate, does that increase the chances that if Democrats did maintain control of the Senate, that you could get rid of the filibuster?
Well, I feel we're going to maintain control of the Senate. And I think for issues like this, whether it's choice or voting rights, I think it's appropriate to reconsider, what do we have to do to get those things across the finish line? Because, in one case, it's so important for our democracy. And we've got forces in our country that are trying to undermine our democracy. We had an insurrection on January 6th. Donald Trump is still doesn't believe he lost the election in 2020. He clearly did. There were hundreds of lawsuits filed. They all did not turn out in his favor. So it's at certain times in our country's history, I think it's appropriate to make the necessary change to get certain things across the finish line in the Senate.
I want to talk to you about another critical issue in your state, the issue of immigration. The number of illegal border crossings dropped since their record high in December. As a senator of a border state, do you still believe that the situation at the border is a crisis, as you have said in the past, as President Biden has said in the past?
It's been a crisis for most of the time that I've been in the Senate.
And it's still a crisis.
Yeah, and we have the opportunity to fix it. And it's the most frustrating thing I have dealt with while I've been in office. Probably in my entire adult life, since I graduated from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, at work, what happened on that border security bill. We had an agreement. This was negotiated over, a long period of time. Democrats and Republicans and the administration working together, including the Secretary of Homeland Security, on something that was going to provide more Border Patrol agents, more CBP officers, more machines to detect fentanyl, the money to build facilities to be able to hold more migrants so you could adjudicate, their claims. And if they didn't meet, the appropriate level to receive asylum, they could be, sent back to, their country or sent back to, Mexico if they crossed the border. There were policy changes in there. We were so close. And again, one person, one individual stopped that from happening. And that's the former president.
Given that bipartisan deal that you speak of didn't pass, it got torpedoed, should President Biden take executive action? He's reportedly considering this, including one that would severely restrict migrants from seeking asylum. Immigration advocates have called it a page out of Trump's playbook of cruelty. Would you support
I don't know
taking that action?
exactly what action you're talking about, but this has been at times a crisis. Mm-hmm. And for the folks that I represent, especially ones on the southern border, talk to mayors down there all the time. Whether it's Yuma, Douglas, Nogales, sheriffs down there, they're incredibly frustrated. We should look for other options, but the solution, we were gonna take a big step forward. And by the way, this wasn't, for a lot of my Democratic colleagues, this wasn't meeting, the Republicans on the 50-yard line. This was meeting them on the 10-yard line on their side of the field. And it was a huge step forward for border security. And many of these things I supported. There were some other immigration reforms in there. We're going to be able to increase the number of visas to reunite families, a really positive thing as well. So there was a lot of positive stuff. They walked away from that. It's left the president in a position where his only option right now is to look at some executive actions. Those often you run into problems because you often wind up in court. So I think it depends on what it is, and certainly some of these I would be supportive of.
Understood you're not looking at the exact text as we sit here, but it sounds like, would you support something that included limiting asylum seekers? Would you support the idea of why not get caught trying?
Well, I have, worked, on this issue, including, what it means to come across our border and claim asylum. What's credible fear? What is the appropriate asylum standard? And in that agreement with Republicans, we were making changes to that. I think at this point, it's certainly appropriate for the president to take a look at that, but I would have to see the details.
But it sounds like you are open to him taking some type of executive action on the border.
Yes, again, it's because my Republican colleagues woke up one morning, and it's because of what Donald Trump said, that he made it very clear that he wanted to have the border as an issue for the election. I've never seen a politician do that before. I mean, something where it was obvious that this is an issue that the former president wanted to address. Border security was important for him. He did not want the problem solved, so he left the administration, with no other choice to consider other options.
Senator, let me ask it this way. Given how critical of an issue the border is in your state and in so many other states across the country, can President Biden win re-election if he doesn't take executive action on the border?
He absolutely can win election. I expect him to win re-election. The choices between him and Donald Trump could not be more stark. On one hand, you have a president, President Donald Trump, that wants to take us back to 1864. I mean, he set the conditions here in Arizona for us to wind up with a draconian 1864 law. Or he's trying to undermine the election in 2020. On the other hand, you have Joe Biden. If you're a senior in the state of Arizona, price of your prescription drugs, are going to come down dramatically. This year, out-of-pocket expenses, $3,300 a year. Next year, $2,000 a year. If you're a young person looking for a new career and a new job, you can get that job in the semiconductor industry thanks to President Biden. So we have, on one hand, we've got a president that wants to take us backwards, all the way back to the Civil War. On the other hand, you have President Biden that is literally moving this country forward in the right direction.
I want to ask you about something that just happened here in Arizona. The Attorney General just indicted 18 people for their role in a fake elector scheme. And this week, former President Trump yet again said he would not commit to the results, accepting the results of the 2024 election. How concerned are you that there will be another attempt to overturn the results here in Arizona if Donald Trump doesn't win this state?
Oh, very concerned. We have Kari Lake on the ballot in the Senate race, who is also talking about how, the 2020 election was stolen here from Donald Trump. Clearly wasn't. Same thing in 2022 when she ran for governor. She's on the ballot again. These folks have been indicted. I trust our judicial system that they're going to go through a process, and however this turns out, we all have to accept what that process is.
Do you think it took too long to get these indictments? Here we are 6 months away from the election.
Well, these are serious charges, and I think any attorney general, Chris Mays in this, in this case, needs to take, their time at this to make sure they get it right.
Republican Senate candidate Kari Lake, who you just referenced, recently told her supporters to strap on a Glock to prepare themselves for what she called an intense election period ahead. Mr. Trump told Time magazine that whether there will be violence around the election, quote, depends on its fairness. You've obviously experienced political violence firsthand. Your wife, then Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, survived a shooting at a constituent event. What's your reaction when you hear language like that?
Well, it's dangerous. What Kari Lake said, could result in people getting hurt or killed.
You think words can translate into violence?
Absolutely, words, especially when they come from somebody who is in a leadership position. And Kari Lake's never been elected to anything. I don't expect her ever to be elected to anything. But when you're a candidate for the United States Senate, you need to be careful with your words. We've seen this throughout history. So I hope people reject that. I think they should consider their language and try to do better going forward.
Given what you have been through, given what your family has been through, does that hit you personally when you hear language like that?
Well, I think about what happened to Gabby in 2011, certainly. I mean, she was, shot in the head while meeting with her constituents. 6 people died. Another 18, including her, were injured. It was a horrific, act of political violence. We need people in elected office that want to take this country in a better direction, where we accept the outcome of elections, where we don't use language to try to incite our supporters. You know, we don't need folks in the United States Senate that is, you know, that they're comfortable, you know, using language like that.
I do want to turn the page. I want to ask you about 2024. And let's talk first about the Senate race here. Obviously, Senator Sinema, as we've talked about, is not running for re-election. Did her decision to leave the party and the Senate make Democrats more vulnerable in 2024? How do you assess the state of the race?
I've worked very closely with Senator Sinema over a 3.5-year period, and her service to the state of Arizona, it was significant. We worked on so much legislation, whether it was the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the gun safety legislation, CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, you know, just to move this country in the right direction. And I think her service to this country is really admirable. At the same time, we now have an open Senate seat, but Ruben Gallego is going to win that Senate seat.
It's a close race.
It's close right now. I don't think it's going to be close on Election Day because, again, you could not find, you know, two people where it's so obvious who the right choice is. Ruben is a combat veteran, served in the United States Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps. He's also a person that wants to bring people together. He serves on the Armed Services Committee in the House. I serve on the Armed Services Committee in the Senate and the Intelligence Committee. We work on so many military programs to help members of the military here in Arizona and across the country. And he's somebody that I know is going to be able to work across the aisle with our Republican colleagues. Carrie Lake is somebody that just wants to divide this country. She will be a divisive figure if she ever got to the United States Senate. And that's why, you know, I know Arizonans can see that, and that's why Ruben Gallego is going to be elected.
President Biden is currently getting low marks for his handling of immigration, the economy, inflation. What does he need to do in these remaining months to reach out to voters here in Arizona and win this state that right now polls show he's losing?
Well, I wouldn't put too much stock in the polls. I've run 2 very competitive races here in the state of Arizona. I think the president just needs to get out there, you know, talk about what this administration has done, what we've accomplished in the last 3.5 years on infrastructure, on semiconductor chips, on the price of medication, including insulin at $35 a month. I mean, thing after thing, you could go down a long list where his administration and President Biden has led this country in a direction that is helping regular people.
But Senator, I talk to Democrats in this state, all across the country, and they say they are really worried about President Biden's prospects for re-election.
Hey, it's going to be a close election. It was close in 2020. President won Arizona by 10,000 votes. My election in 2020 and 2022 were close elections as well. I mean, statewide races here tend to be close. We're a purple state. It's a battleground state. It's also it's going to be a state that could decide who has the majority in the United States Senate. We know that. That's why we got to work hard. Yeah, I've worked hard in 2 elections here in 2020 and 2022. My wife, Gabby, in her district in Arizona, had some tough races. We know how to win tough races here. I imagine we're going to see the president and the vice president back here again, telling the story about what this administration has done and the option of Donald Trump, who again wants to take our country backwards.
Senator Kelly, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
It's a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.